Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday night story time with Skaaro the Red. And tonight we bring you chapter 17 in the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red. Now, previously on the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red, Skaaro was rescued from the tomb spider's web by a team of Smirfneblin rangers who took him back to their city as a prisoner, where he was then placed on parole by their leader, Lord Fizendod, under the condition that he helped them dismantle a nearby Duergar prospector camp. So, here we return to the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red with Chapter 17. After his meeting with Lord Fizendod and subsequent release, Skaaro followed Jiverlap out of the town hall and to another large building nearby.
"This is the barracks," Jiverlap explained. "There's an armory inside where your equipment awaits. But just remember this, we'll be watching you closely. One wrong move and we'll put a dozen poison arrows into you before you can blink."
Jiverlap led Skaaro through the barracks and into the armory. Inside, there were numerous racks with assorted weapons such as spears, swords, daggers, bows, axes, and crossbows, as well as a number of other stands holding armor sets.
"Right over here," Jiverlap stated. "They made this today, special just for you,"
he said, pointing at a large great axe hanging on a rack. Skaaro recognized immediately that it was clearly forged from mithril, with a leather-wrapped handle and a glowing orange gem set into the center of the blade. A slight hint of smoke drifted from the blade. Picking up the great axe, Skaaro found it was both perfectly sized and weighted, yet felt oddly warm in his hands.
"Careful now," Jiverlap said. "That blade be enchanted, and will burn anything it touches, including yourself."
"Noted," said Skaaro. Then Jiverlap pointed out a set of simple mithril chain armor hung on a stand nearby. Skaaro put on the armor, then holstered the enchanted blade behind his back.
"Well, let's get to it then,"
Skaaro stated.
"I'm assuming you know the way," he asked.
"The elite rangers are already waiting for us at the gate. Once we arrive, we'll head out immediately,"
said Jiverlap. Skaaro and Jiverlap left the barracks and headed back to the city gate where a dozen Smirfneblin rangers awaited them. As Skaaro and Jiverlap approached, one of the rangers stepped forward and said,
"We've already scouted ahead and have a clear route to the Duergar camp."
Skaaro followed the Smirfneblin rangers out of the city and into the dark tunnels.
"We must keep as quiet as possible and stay in the shadows," Jiverlap told Skaaro. "The Duergar camp is about an hour's walk from here. The scouts have told us that there's at least 24 Duergar there, half of them prospectors and miners, the other half are guards and warriors."
The team of Deep Gnome Rangers led Skaaro to a tunnel overlooking the Duergar camps. From their vantage point, they could see the camp was a series of tents, tables, boxes, and some small-scale mining machinery. The entire camp was enclosed by a short razor-wire fence, and although most of the personnel appeared to be teams of prospectors on expeditions serving the region, their camp was still quite extensive and well guarded. Near the back of the camp, they could see the captured deep gnomes were being held all together in a small cage, and were guarded by a squad of 4 Duergar warriors and a large mechanical construct. Jiverlap leaned close and whispered to Skaaro,
"The rangers will set up ambush points in the tunnels around the camp, while we assault the camp directly."
"I've an idea,"
said Skaaro, as he scooped up some muck from the floor of the tunnel.
"I'm going in disguise,"
he explained, as he smeared the muck on his face and beard.
"Once I'm inside, I'll distract them while you sneak around behind."
Jiverlap nodded in agreement, and they began climbing down from the tunnel. As Skaaro and Jiverlap climbed down to approach the camp directly, the rest of the team of rangers backtracked through the tunnels, then snuck around and into ambush positions in the surrounding tunnels to cut off any potential escape routes. Just outside the camp, Jiverlap took up position in the shadows, while Skaaro approached the main gate to enter the camp in disguise. Skaaro casually walked up to the gate and waved at the 2 guards, but they both stepped forward to block his path.
"Who are you?
one of the guards demanded.
I'm with the reinforcements,
Skaaro replied.
We didn't order any reinforcements,
The guard responded, then asked,
And where's the rest of your squad?
Oh, no squad, just me, Skaaro replied.
I'm an elite guard.
He tried to convince them. The two guards looked at each other a moment, then shaking their heads, they stepped back and pointed their spears at Skaaro.
You're coming with us,
said the guard. Skaaro rolled back and unsheathed his great axe.
Fine, we'll do it the hard way then,
he said, swinging his axe at the guards, slicing right through both of their spears. The guards looked at the smoldering spear handles, then began to back away. Before they could alert the camp, Skaaro again slashed with his huge mithril axe, this time slicing one of the guards' heads right off. As his severed head tumbled through the air, the guard's neck burst into flames, and his body tumbled to the ground. The other guard tried to run, but before he could even take a step, several small arrows struck him in the neck and back. He dropped to his knees as he gasped for air and choked on the blood, then fell face first to the ground. Blood quickly pooled around his limp body. Skaaro glanced back as Jiverlap leapt from the nearby shadows and sprinted to another concealed position nearby.
We're under attack,
someone in the camp shouted. Then several more Duergar charged out of the tents towards Skaaro with swords drawn. Skaaro readied his axe, and once the guards were near enough, he leapt forward, slashing at them in midair, then crashing down right in the middle of the group. The impact sent out a shockwave, knocking the guards to the ground. One of them was badly injured, with a large burning slash through his chest. As the remaining three rose, Skaaro roared and swung his axe with an upward slice, completely severing another guard's arm. The dismembered guard screamed as blood sprayed from his wound, and then his stump burst into flames, sending him fleeing in terror. The other two guards slashed at Skaaro with their swords, but Skaaro managed to dodge their attacks by blocking them with his mithril great axe. As their swords clashed against his blade, they began to glow red from the heat of the great axe's enchanted blade. It wasn't long before their swords became so hot they could no longer hold them, and both guards dropped their smoking red-hot swords to the ground. As one of them turned to flee, Skaaro expertly beheaded him with a spray of blood and flames. Meanwhile, Jiverlap quickly dispatched the other guard with a rapid succession of arrows through his chest and neck. "Hold out your axe a moment," Jiverlap requested.
Sure thing, little buddy,
Skaaro replied as he lowered his axe. Jiverlap used the heat of Skaro's blade to ignite several arrows, which he then launched into the nearby tents. Then numerous more arrows flew out from the surrounding tunnels, setting many more of the tents ablaze. After a few moments, the entire camp was engulfed in flames. Panicked Duergar prospectors ran from their tents, attempting to flee into the tunnels where they were ambushed by the Svirfneblin Rangers. The fleeing Duergar prospectors were completely slaughtered. Skaaro could hear their screams all the way back at the camp. As Jiverlap once more slipped into the cover of the shadows, Skaaro continued his onslaught. While a few guards tried unsuccessfully to battle him, most of the Duergar who still drew breath attempted to flee with the prospectors, only to die alongside them in the tunnels at the hands of the Deep Gnome Rangers. Once Skaaro reached the imprisoned Svirfneblin miners, he was confronted by the camp warden. He was well armored and wore a red cape and a gold helmet. Carrying a small shield in one hand and a spiked hammer in the other, the Duergar warden showed no fear of Skaaro.
You rotten little dwarves, always sticking your beards where they don't belong, the warden shouted. You're going to pay for what you've done here.
Without a word, Skaaro raised his great axe and prepared to charge at the warden. But before Skaaro could reach the warden, a huge metal construct stepped out from a nearby burning tent to his flank. Shaped like a man, but twice as large, the mechanized construct creaked, whirred, and groaned as it made its way towards Skaaro. Turning its head towards Skaaro, its big round mouth slid open and a stream of fire shot forth. Skaaro spun around and raised his axe, like a shield blocking the fire. Since the weapon was crafted to hold a burning enchantment, Skaaro surmised that the axe itself must be impervious to such heat. Although Skaaro was correct,
While he was distracted by the construct, the Duergar warden had run up behind him. Jiverlap fired several arrows at the warden, but he quickly blocked them with his shield. Then, swinging his warhammer, the warden smashed Skaaro across the back, knocking Skaaro tumbling across the ground. Jiverlap again fired several more arrows at the Duergar warden, but he easily blocked them as he and the metal construct continued to stalk the injured Skaaro. Before Skaaro could rise to his feet, the metal construct creaked and squealed as it delivered a mighty kick, sending Skaaro into the air and rolling further across the ground. Then the warden ran towards him, with his warhammer raised above his head. But before he could strike, Jiverlap delivered several more arrows into the back of the warden's legs, one of them landing right behind his knee. The Duergar warden roared in pain and turned towards Jiverlap, who was already rolling away into the shadows.
Get him!
He shouted at the construct while pointing at Jiverlap. Then, just as the warden returned his attention towards Skaaro, Skaaro had spun to his feet and simultaneously swung his axe at the warden's legs. The Duergar warden's feet were sliced right off at the ankles. Then, as the warden screamed while his bleeding legs burst into flames, before the warden could tumble over, Skaaro swung again with his blade, delivering an upward slash, slicing right through the warden's armor and nearly cutting him in half. The dead warden's wounds sprayed blood and burst into flames as he tumbled to the ground. Meanwhile, Jiverlap was cornered, and the giant metal construct was slowly approaching him. Just as the construct was about to once more breathe a stream of fire at him, Skaaro raised his great axe and charged at it with all his might. Leaping into the air, Skaaro slammed his axe directly into the middle of the construct's back, splitting the metal wide open. Before dislodging the axe, Skaaro held on tight and pried open the slash, exposing the gears and shafts inside. As the mechanical monstrosity began to flail about trying to throw Skaaro off, Skaaro proceeded to hack at the construct's insides. After a few seconds, something inside it finally broke off and jammed, causing the construct to creak and groan, and with one last puff of black smoke, it came to a complete standstill. Afterwards, Skaaro retrieved the keys from the dead Duergar warden. Then he and Jiverlap approached the cage containing the Svirfneblin prisoners. Unfortunately, when they arrived at the cage, all the Svirfneblin miners were dead. Each of the prisoners had a small dart in their neck, presumably poisoned. Then, just as Skaaro and Jiverlap were examining the dead Svirfneblin miners, Jiverlap suddenly shrieked. Skaaro looked over to see a long, thin, curved blade protruding from Jiverlap's chest. Behind him, a tall, thin humanoid shape emerged from the darkness. Skaaro could tell from his long ears and dark complexion that it was a drow. The assassin grinned as he swiftly yanked his blade free from Jiverlap's limp corpse. Skaaro roared at the drow and swung his great axe, but before Skaro's attack could strike him, the drow assassin vanished with a puff of sparkling purple smoke. Skaro's blade harmlessly sliced through the smoke. Then Skaaro jumped back and swung his great axe wildly about himself, and slowly backed away, keeping a defensive position, ready to block the assassin's next attack. After a few seconds, the assassin reappeared a short distance away. This time, Skaaro noticed a slight movement in the shadow and saw the drow raising a blowgun. Then, just as the assassin fired the dart, Skaaro raised his great axe and blocked the incoming dart. He then charged forward, slashing at the drow with his axe. The drow tried to spin away and dodge Skaro's attack, but this time, Skaaro managed to hack one of his arms clean off. The drow screamed as his arm fell to the ground and his stump burst into flames. He slashed back at Skaaro wildly with his dagger, but Skaaro was able to leap back and dodge his attacks. Then, the assassin pulled a small round ball from his belt and tossed it to the ground. A sparkling purple cloud engulfed him, and once more the drow vanished into the shadows. Skaaro waited and waited, then cautiously backing his way out of the camp. As he neared the gates, Skaaro noticed a few of the Svirfneblin rangers emerging from the tunnels.
"Stay back," he shouted. "There's a drow here."
Once Skaaro made his way out of the camp, he returned to the tunnel they came from. A squad of Svirfneblin Rangers were already assembled and waiting him.
"They're all dead," Skaaro announced as he returned. "A drow assassin killed them all. Killed Jiverlap too."
Did you kill the drow? The Rangers asked.
"No, I injured him, but he got away,"
Skaaro replied, shaking his head.
"We better get going then. Lord Fizendod will want to see you,"
said one of the Rangers. He then ordered the others to seal all the tunnels and search the surrounding tunnels for any sign of drow. Then Skaaro and a small detachment of Rangers returned to Kovinkal City to report back to Lord Fizendod. When they returned to the city, the Deep Gnomes were at first joyous and glad to see them, even cheering for them and thanking them as Skaaro and the Rangers made their way to the town hall. Just as they approached the building, a small mechanized construct stepped out of the crowd to greet them. It was about the same height as a halfling and was plated in gold. Sitting there atop the metallic body was Toothless Pete's head.
"Skaaro, I knew you could do it,"
Toothless Pete said as he approached Skaaro.
"These little Snurfleblin are really quite inventive. They even made me my very own body," he continued. "It's powered by enchanted gems and controlled by lithic crystals which react to thought. And they were even kind enough to replace my missing eye with a silver prosthetic eye," Pete said, pointing at his new eye. "See that green gem in the middle there? They told me I can fire a magic beam from it once a day, which is powerful enough to burn right through someone."
"Yeah, you look really great there, Pete, and it's good to see you again,"
Skaaro said.
"But I'm afraid the mission was less than successful."
"What happened?"
Pete inquired.
"Well, he killed all the Duragar, but the prisoners were dead when we got there. Then a drow assassin showed up,"
Skaaro explained.
"and he got away."
"Oh, that can't be good,"
Pete responded as he followed Skaaro into the town hall. Inside, Lord Fizendod awaited them at his desk. When they approached, he swiftly removed his glasses and glared at them a moment. Then, shaking his head, he said,
"Please explain to me how you've managed to get all the prisoners killed and let a drow escape. And even poor Jiverlap is dead."
"Well, everything was going well at first,"
Skaaro explained.
"Once we made our way through the guards, we encountered the camp warden and a giant fire-breathing construct," he continued. "But by the time we had defeated the warden and his mechanical monster, the prisoners were already dead. That's when that blasted drow assassin snuck up on us and killed Jiverlap."
Lord Fizendod silently took notes as Skaaro continued his tale.
"After that, I tried to kill him, even lopped off his arm, but the Duragar vanished and snuck off somehow."
"Well, you did dismantle the camp and killed all the Duragar," Lord Fizendod responded. "But your contract specified that you were to rescue the mining team and not let anyone escape alive."
Shaking his head.
"Skaaro, you have failed 2 out of the 3 criteria we agreed upon. Because of these failures," he continued, "the drow will surely send an army here to wipe us out. We have to begin evacuating the city immediately. I don't even know where we will go next."
"Well, I did my best," Skaaro responded. "And nobody warned me about any drow assassins, or fire-breathing machinations either."
"Yes, and I realize it's not entirely your fault," Lord Fizendod said, "as there were unexpected factors beyond your control, so therefore I will grant you a pardon, but you will be forever exiled from our clan's territories, wherever they may be. Furthermore," he continued, "all rewards tendered are hereby revoked. Please return the armor and great axe, and, well, since your friend here isn't at fault, we can't, well, take his body away, but we will, however, be downgrading him from the deluxe model to the more economy model."
Skaaro reluctantly handed over the enchanted mithril great axe and the mithril chain armor to the guards in the hall, who took it away.
"I should have known you'd foul this up somehow,"
Toothless Pete complained, as he was being led away by an engineer and an arcanist.
"We shouldn't be long," the Svirfneblin engineer said. "Just wait outside and we'll have him out in a jiffy. He'll be just fine."
"Sign here," said Lord Fizendod.
"This is our new pardon agreement,"
he explained, as Skaaro signed the paper.
"Is that it?"
Skaaro asked.
Yes, Lord Fizendard replied. Now get out and never come back, he said loudly, pointing at the door.
Sulking over his failure, Skaaro left the town hall and sat on the steps outside to await Toothless Pete. The Svirfneblin crowds no longer joyous and happy, rather, a sullen sadness had sunk over Kovinkal. Most of the Svirfneblin were already making preparations to evacuate the city. It took nearly an hour, but eventually Toothless Pete awkwardly waddled out to meet Skaaro. Gone was Toothless Pete's gold plating, now replaced with dented and torn patchwork of various low-grade metals, with random sections of gears and rods and other internal parts left exposed.
Aye, thanks a lot.
Toothless Pete sneered sarcastically as he approached Skaaro.
This is nearly as bad now as being carried about on a stick,
He complained. No longer was Toothless Pete's mechanical body controlled by illithid thought crystals, but instead it is now steered by wires attached to each of his eyelids, which to make each footstep respectively, causing him to alternate winks to induce a walking motion. And now, instead of being powered by enchanted gems, his body was powered by pressurized steam from burning coals in a stove in his belly. They even took his nice silver eye with the enchanted gem out and put in a wooden one, which wasn't even properly round, and just had a crudely painted picture of a lopsided eye on it.
So, where to now?
Toothless Pete asked as he and Skaaro made their way out of Kovinkal City.
Since we're completely empty-handed, I'm heading back to that Duragar camp to look for supplies,
Skaaro replied.
Then, with any luck, I'd like to get out of the Underdark and back to the surface. Aye, and hopefully before that Drow army arrives,
Toothless Pete added.
If there's resources to be mined here, they'll certainly be coming. Indeed, Skaaro responded. And they'll no doubt be looking for me after what I done to them Duragar.
After leaving Kovinkal, Skaaro and Toothless Pete followed the tunnels back towards the Duragar camp. After a lengthy trek through the tunnels, Skaaro and Toothless Pete soon approached a squadron of Svirfneblin rangers, setting up explosive devices into the tunnel walls.
We're collapsing all the tunnels to these parts in about 10 minutes,
One of the rangers warned them as they passed.
Which way to the surface?
Skaaro asked.
Oh, you can't get to the surface from this area,
The ranger replied.
Your best bet is to keep following the caverns past the Duragar camp until you reach a chasm. Climb all the way down the chasm, and at the bottom you'll find an underground river, which will eventually lead you to an exit. But I must warn you, the ranger continued. It's a long and treacherous journey. Those deep depths are uncharted parts of the Underdark, and are infested with goblins, cave trolls, and all sorts of other nasty critters.
Skaaro thanked the ranger. Then he and Toothless Pete continued down the tunnel until they reached the large cavern where the Duragar's camp was located.
Be careful here,
Skaaro said as they approached the smoldering ruins of the Duragar camp.
There could be more Drow here already.
Most of the camp was destroyed during the battle, and the dismembered bodies of the slain Duragar still lay scattered about the camp. Skaaro and Toothless Pete cautiously made their way to the back of the camp where Skaaro battled the Duragar warden.
Oh, thanks more than it's still here,
Skaaro said as he approached the bloodied remains of the warden. Then, reaching down, Skaaro retrieved the fallen warden's spiked battle hammer.
This'll do just fine,
Skaaro stated as he proudly brandished the warhammer.
It's not exactly an enchanted mithril great axe, but it's well made and just the right size.
I suppose anything's being better than unarmed down here,
Pete responded. Then Skaaro removed what was left of the warden's armor. Although it was damaged in the fight, it was still mostly intact, so Skaaro brought it along. They searched the rest of the camp for a short while and found a few useful supplies, including some backpacks, a long rope, some torches, and even some dried meats, and several flasks of some sort of foul-tasting wine. After a short while, boom, 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 several loud explosions could be heard in the distance.
Sounds like them Svirfneblin are collapsing the tunnels,
Toothless Pete stated.
Huh,
Skaaro responded.
For all the good it'll do 'em, the Duragar will blast right through it anyway. But at least I think it's safe to say we're still alone for the moment,
Skaaro stated as they gathered the supplies they collected.
If there's any drow down here, They would have made their move by now, I think,
Toothless Pete responded.
but that's not to say they couldn't arrive at any moment.
You're right, Skaaro agreed. We'll rest here a short while, but we have to keep our guard up.
Then, using some debris collected from the Duergar camp, they built a small campfire. While they sat at the fire, eating some dried meat and drinking the foul-tasting wine, Skaaro used some materials he found around the camp to effect some repairs to the warden's armor. But, since both were exhausted from their journey, it wasn't long before they dozed off to sleep. And that's it for Chapter 17 of the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red. I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's show. And next weekend we'll be bringing you Chapter 18 in the book, which will probably be the last chapter I do this year. And then I'll resume on January 5th again. So I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching. If you're enjoying this show, please give me a thumbs up, a like, upvote, what have you. And just keep tuning on in and listening, and I'll keep doing them. Again, once more, thank you for watching. This has been Skaaro the Red, and we'll see you next Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/SkaroTheRed. Good night, everybody.